So here we are rolling through turn 3 at Pocono Raceway for a quick 20-lap race with an Indycar. Get up into second gear here as we'll come to the green flag, starting from the rear. Should be a pretty interesting race. Green flag is out. Can't pass before the start-finish line, but we'll sweep then to the inside down this really wide straightaway. Some of the cars at the back here are pretty slow, so we'll get around them pretty easy. But coming into turn 1, let off the gas a little bit. Oh, touching the apron down the inside. The car is able to sweep by. I think it was Tony Kanaan there in his ABC Supply Foyt Racing car there. Now we're coming to tricky turn 2. Let off the gas a bit, coasted through here in this opening lap. Oh, a slower car down the inside. Looks like it might be Charlie Kimball as well. Come to his outside into turn 3. Shifted down into 4th here on this first lap. Coasted through already, coming around to complete lap number 1. This is, of course, NASCAR Racing 2003 with a pretty awesome mod that came out a few months ago. That is the 2018 or 2019-2018 IndyCar, and it's really, really well done. The mod maker had released one other version of this about a year earlier, and it was pretty good, but this one is so much better. The model is really, really well done, and for NASCAR 2003, this has to be one of the best looking mods that there is out there, especially for the more complex cars that aren't a NASCAR. Done a little bit of work myself with the physics and things to get them racing realistically, and it's pretty convincing. For somebody who really would love an IndyCar game, this definitely tickles the itch a bit. Now getting a good draft on Tony Kanaan. Will run to the inside. Got Marcus Ericsson in front of him into turn 1. Have to let off the throttle a bit. Oh, Marcus Ericsson checking up. We slide up to the outside, but luckily we were clear of Kanaan. He's looking to our inside, but I think we've got him now. We'll stay in the draft here. So we're just on lap 3. Not too long of a race, but enough time to get into some trouble for sure. So making this video for a few reasons. One, because I love IndyCars, but 2, just after the race this past weekend, something that I was originally going to make some kind of video where I talked all about what I think's right and wrong, but it's just such a difficult topic of whether or not it's safe for IndyCars to be racing on high-speed ovals or not. As we sweep up the outside, getting around Ericsson, but not able to make much ground on Veach there. It's a tricky subject about whether or not race cars like this should be racing on fast speedways, like we have here. Oh, getting checked up a bit through turn 2. And I don't know what the right answer is. I was trying to think of my thoughts, and they honestly just keep changing so much. This is by far my favorite type of racing, and the kind of racing that I loved when I was a kid especially, and still today. And this past year I actually went to my very first Indianapolis 500. Being from New England, not the easiest to get out there, but took the trip this year, and it was absolutely amazing. Followed everything the whole month, every practice session, every qualifying session, made it out there the week of the race, and it was exactly what I wanted it to be. It was at the Indy 500. This type of racing is just increasingly rare, and I feel like what we saw this past weekend with the massive crash on the first lap of the race kind of was the nail in the coffin, or I fear it's the nail in the coffin for this type of racing. And I don't know whether or not that's what needs to happen, or if some other change could make things safer, or if it's just how things need to be now. It's got a pretty good run now in this little pack. It just makes me really sad overall, I think, that this type of racing on super speedways in an IndyCar, where I personally think these types of cars should be racing, that this is, maybe over outside of Indy, and who knows what could happen at Indy, and it might be over there too. Maybe the cars are too fast these days, or the drivers are too aggressive, but there's just way too many variables, and I don't really get to make any of those decisions anyway. I think some folks, especially I know a lot of folks internationally watch my channels, specifically because of the older Grand Prix racing that I do, and maybe don't understand oval racing, and I don't blame you. I know it's a tough thing for me to sell to some of my racing friends too, who maybe like Formula One or don't come from an American background racing, and I can understand why oval racing maybe isn't the we're getting squeezed down there under the 21. Getting a nice run on Herta, really flying through the field here, but things will get much tougher as I get further up. It's too wide through turn 3 is not easy, but able to make it work. I can understand why oval racing isn't everybody's cup of tea. I think, especially in the past 5, 6, 7 years, the Indy 500's kind of regained its place even internationally. I think folks, respect that event, which is nice to see. I love watching Le Mans. I love watching Monaco and F1. I love the Indy 500. I love a lot of different racing, and I'm happy that race, is so important to motor racing overall. But there used to be so much more of that type of racing. You go back to the mid to late 90s. I think that really had to be the heyday of super speedway open wheel racing, and we had both kart and Indy, or IRL at the time, doing a lot of ovals, and I definitely loved that type of racing. Loved the idea, especially in the early 90s, of the Triple Crown for IndyCar, racing at Michigan, Pocono, and Indy. And that to me is the most exciting type of racing. And it's not when they're racing like we are here side by side. Again, with Marco Andretti, able to get in front of him. He's running pretty good in this race compared to real life, up into 13th now, or 12th for myself. It's not the wheel to wheel, and I think that's maybe where things have gone wrong if I really think about it. I enjoy just as much watching a car just leading the pack, blowing everybody away, or really I love strategy. I think IndyCars on ovals are really hurt with yellow flags and cautions. You obviously have to have them, but if you can have an oval race that doesn't have a caution and you can let strategy play out, that is, to me, some of the best racing. I don't need to see, and I don't always like to see wheel-to-wheel battles. They're honestly terrifying in IndyCars some of the times, and watching the cars on these types of circuits, and it definitely is difficult to watch. For a little background, I've actually been to Pocono, making our way on board day there. But I've been to Pocono 4 times, I believe. I didn't go the first year they were there, or back there, in 2013, but I think I went 2014, 2015, and I saw the Justin Wilson accident. Honestly, from where I was sitting, you couldn't see much, but when the helicopter starts up, that bad things are happening. And I'd never been at a racetrack where somebody had been killed, so I didn't go in 2016. And watching the race, I kind of regretted not going, so I did go in 2017 and saw a really great race, and then I went in 2018 last year, and it was a terrible day. I think not something I've ever really brought up to too many people. I actually went to that race solo, drove the 6 hours from Boston that it takes, and got to the race maybe 2 hours before it started. Walked around all the shops and whatever, and then got my seat for the race, and everybody knows what happened on lap 7 of that race. So we got a slow car here up the inside. Maybe Felix Rosenqvist there, slowing down a bit. But everybody knows what happens here in turn 2, and I definitely saw the whole thing, and I've heard that sound before, specifically from Pocono 2014 or 15, I believe, when Charlie Kimball, flew up and hit the fence in qualifying. A lot of people forget about that accident, but I'd heard that sound, and I picked up my stuff immediately when I saw that accident and left the track. It just kind of tore me up, and did the 6-hour drive home. And I know they restarted the race a couple hours later. I actually ended up listening to some of it on the radio on the way home, but affected me quite a bit, and I'm happy I went to the Indy 500 this year, to kind of heal some of those wounds and have a really great day watching some awesome racing. And I wasn't able to go to Pocono this year. Thought about it, but didn't go, and I'm pretty happy I didn't, because I'm sure that seeing something very, very similar would have had a pretty bad effect. But I'm just very upset that this type of racing is potentially over. Indy's talking about going to Richmond next year instead of Pocono, which I'm always happy to have another oval on the schedule, but losing these high-speed ovals, something like a Fontana, obviously like Pocono, Michigan, I really loved that idea of IndyCar racing all the way since the early 90s, when I started watching, and it's upsetting that it's probably done. I don't see a way that they're going back to these types of tracks with the reputation they're getting, and I don't think the drivers are very used to it anymore, and so it might just be over. Got sims like this. Thankfully, we can have some fun doing it, and I wish it could be a different way. I think I'm still feeling pretty mixed up about everything. My favorite sport changing quite a bit as we speak. I think this season, past couple seasons have been pretty important for IndyCar. It's definitely getting more popular again, which I'm very thankful for. Watching Indy flounder in the mid 2000s, and even the 500 not being anything too special. At least the 500's back to being a pretty important race, and it seems like the rest of the series is growing a little bit. See how much it can grow with the appetite for racing in the United States. But this is a little bit different than my normal videos, but hopefully, interested to see if other people have the same thoughts, where I'm thinking a million things about what's right, what's wrong, and how could they fix it, and what needs to happen to make it safe. And thank God they're doing some of the things they're doing. I think I'm really conflicted on things like the halo that they're going to be putting. I think it's a way better solution than what F1 uses, since it'll actually have a screen protecting the driver, but it does ruin something when you're putting protection like that in front of a driver. Will the drivers get even more daring? Who's to say? And I really don't know what's the right thing for the sport to be doing, but we'll see, I guess, how things move on from it. Running a little wide there through turn one. Trying to catch up to, I think, Graham Rahal. Things have strung out quite a bit here with just 4 laps to go. Looks like he's chasing down another car, which I'm not sure which one it is. This track, once you're up to speed and things are strung out a bit, you can run pretty fast. Turn 3 here is quite a bit slow, running really wide there, able to make it work. Turn 1, you can just lift up just a little bit with a wide arc to get through the corner. In turn 2, if you're really good, you can get it flat out, but it is a hard one to get. Just a little bit of a lift there, missing the apex slightly, let it run out wide. I'm definitely pulling in Rahal here, 3 to go. We'll come through turn 2, lifting again, but getting a pretty good run there. The white car here in front of Rahal, might be his teammate potentially. Let's come back onto the front stretch, I think 2 to go now. Streaking past, nothing like standing right next to the wall there on the front stretch and watching the cars blow past at 230 miles an hour. Yes, we're pretty close to Rahal here. I don't think we're going to have enough time to duck under him into turn 2. Running pretty wide through there. The car definitely loses some of the ability to turn well when you're behind following another. I don't know exactly what's going on with the aero physics in NASCAR 2003. That's the only thing you really can't simulate well are wings.
One more time.
lap to go here. Looks like Rahaal's looking up the inside. I think Sato. He's able to make that pass. Let's see if we can take advantage of both of them. Oh, both slowing down a bit. We'll jump to the inside here to get past Rahal. I don't know if we'll be able to duck under Sato here. Try to get a good run out of the corner and into turn 3. So we're coming to the checkered flag here. Running a little wide. Try to get the throttle down. Oh, right on the back of Sato as we're coming to the line. Jump to the inside. Side by side. Oh, was I able to get him? Oh no, just right behind him, I think. Not actually sure. Finished 7th there. Let's take a quick look. Oh, and it looks like Sato may have been a lap down actually, which is pretty wild. He was a lap down, so we just got up into 7th position. Starting from the back, not too bad, but you can see the leaders were super far ahead. Scott Dixon edging out Rossi. What could have been this year if the race was didn't start the way it did. But I thank everybody for watching. I know this is quite a bit different than my normal video, but something a little bit different, something kind of fun. If anybody wants to see more IndyCar stuff, let me know. I just got this mod and everything running pretty well, I think, and so would love to do some more races. But appreciate everybody for watching, and I'll see you again next time.
Your road speed 55.